Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks with TalkToProfit.com, and for this Reseller Friday I want to talk to you about being a good reseller who does good. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a little different way than most people would address it, and it's about being a reseller. And when you're out there sourcing, say you're in a thrift store or even in a regular brick and mortar store just doing retail arbitrage, inevitably if you're doing it enough, you're going to have people come up to you and ask you what you're doing. They may be other resellers themselves. They may ask you for advice. They may try to figure out why you're buying a certain item. And I've heard so many people over the years who say, well, I just tell them I'm not a reseller. Which, first thing, why would you lie? Does your integrity mean nothing to you? That you just go out and lie randomly to people when it's obvious that what you're doing in the first place? No one even believes you. But you're going to lie and break your integrity, break your word, where it means nothing because you lie over something so trivial? How could they trust you in anything big? But beyond that, which is a big thing, is the fact that these people aren't going to hurt you. When you have this scarcity mentality, you're afraid to give information to another reseller because then they're going to be your competition and that's going to hurt you somehow. It just shows you have a scarcity mentality. You don't believe in abundance. You don't believe there's enough. You don't believe in God's blessing. So you're expecting that if you help somebody else out, it means a net negative for you, which is absolutely not true. Because I've helped so many resellers over the years, and I'm very busy, but I'll have them ask me something. And these are people just because I'm honest about what I'm doing. I don't hide it. I don't pretend like I'm not a reseller. I've had people ask me, well, why are you buying that item over there? I was just wondering. And I explain to them, I go through my step-by-step process, what I was thinking and why I'm going to buy this item for resale. And you know what I've had happen? I go into that same thrift store later and that individual brings one of those same type of items up to me and says, I grabbed this before anyone else could because I saw it and I knew that you would like it and I knew you'd be in here later today and I could just hand it to you. Now, I didn't help them for that. I didn't help them so they would do stuff for me. I just helped them because I wanted to. And I know, because when I started decades ago, we didn't have all the research. You had to literally go by your own gut instinct and knowledge. And because there was very limited data back then, compared to what there is today, there was a lot more duds. You bought a lot more items that didn't sell very quickly, took a lot longer to sell because you didn't have the data to know. You could immediately go and look on eBay or look on Amazon. You can see Amazon's sales rank and know this item's going to sell within a day of it going live on Amazon. Or on eBay, you can see, okay, this is how many times this item is sold in the last 90 days compared to how many items are listed of that item. This is a good thing to buy. It says a 200% sell-through rate or 100% sell-through rate. These are all things you didn't have access to back then. It would have been great if somebody helped me. I had to go through just basically trial and error, and there was a lot of error. But if I can help somebody, if I can add some value to their life, they're not giving me anything, they're not paying me, they're not doing anything for me, but it often works out they do stuff for me because it's just reciprocal. People want to help somebody who's helpful. And there's one guy who's not even a reseller, but because I was honest with him about what I was doing, he asked me one day, the first time I ever met this guy in a thrift shop, and I saw him all the time in there. He asked me what I was doing because I was looking on my phone. I was looking up a receiver, and I explained to him what I was doing, and I showed him in the sold listings. I said, this is how it tells me what the value is for this item, what it's actually sold for, not just what people are listing it for, because that doesn't mean anything. He was like, wow, that's really good information. He was not a reseller. He didn't want to resell anything. He was in there buying stuff that he was collecting. But you know what happened? I would see him and I'd say hi to him when I was in there, and if I saw him, and he would bring me stuff. Hey, I saw this receiver over here. It looked really good, so I grabbed it before anybody else did. And he wasn't grabbing it for himself. He was grabbing it for me because he knew I came in there at a certain time of day because I have a route that I do. And because I was honest and open and helpful, I wasn't being shady, I wasn't being secretive or pretending like I'm not really a reseller like so many people do today, which I don't understand. That one individual has made me thousands of dollars by just bringing me random items. All because I spent a few minutes one time telling him what I was doing. Now, I have to stress this again. I'm not telling you that, oh, you do this, you're going to have people just going and sourcing for you, basically. I'm not saying that. But my point is that I've had this happen so many times where I've helped people and they turn around and help me. I don't ask them to. I don't hint at it. There's nothing like that going on. They just do it because I naturally attract good people into my life in the first place. And secondly, when you do good, Jesus promised that if you give, it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. It's not God floating goodness and blessing down from heaven, although every good, pleasant, and great gift does come from the Father of lights. But he uses the vessels on earth, generally human beings, to bring you that blessing. So I want to encourage you today, be that reseller who's a blessing. Be that reseller who's a good person, who's honest, has integrity. You're not lying, you're not pretending you're not a reseller. Nothing to be ashamed of about being a reseller. If you're taking advantage of people, or you're doing shady deals, or you're trying to cheat people out of money, yes, that would be disrespectful. That would be something that would be shameful and you should be ashamed of. But being a reseller who's honest and ethical is perfectly fine and it's good. And you're adding value to the world. You're taking items that somebody maybe didn't want and getting them to somebody who does want them. And it's providing value for that end customer who would like that item but doesn't have access to it in their area. You are being a blessing. You shouldn't look at reselling as something to be ashamed of, that you have to lie to people about. The fact you even would, you really need to examine your heart. Because that's not going to bring the best out of your life from other people if you're going around being dishonest about things. So go around being good, being that person who's helpful, who legitimately wants to help people. Not so you can get something in return from them, but so that you can be a blessing. You know, the individual I was talking about, who's not a reseller who collects stuff, well, he's mentioned to me before what he's collecting. And so when I see one of those things, I will literally grab it for him and hold it for him. But this all came from one little thing. So I'm able to bless him even more. There's even a time when I came into that store, one particular thrift store, and he was walking out the door and he said, hey, and he had bought a receiver. At the time I was selling mainly electronics. He goes, I knew this was a good value. I looked it up like you showed me. And I knew this was a good value for you, so I bought it. He literally bought me inventory. And think how that could have been wrecked if I had just been like so many resellers and been dishonest about it up front when he was asking me what I was doing. So many people don't realize how they are literally shooting themselves in the foot. They're bringing a curse upon themselves, first for the lying, but secondly, because they are literally removing themselves from the position of being blessed by these great people you come across in life because they weren't honest. They didn't have the integrity and character enough to just tell people the honest truth. Listen, people aren't trying to get you. They're not trying to catch you in something. They're not trying to criticize you or judge you. And if they are, who cares? You can be a blessing in this world, and that's what you should be. Resellers shouldn't be so stingy on information. They shouldn't be afraid. They shouldn't be living in this poverty mentality, this scarcity mentality, this lack mentality. Go out there, be abundant, be a blessing. Give the information you have to give. I'm not telling you to go chase people down and babble to them, but if you have information that can be valuable to them, give it to them. If they ask, if you'll do this, if you'll approach life from the position of wanting to be a blessing, wanting to do good, as the scripture says, do good unto all men. Be that blessing and watch as your life starts to become a blessed life. You'll have experiences like I've had, where people are literally sourcing items for you, where thrift stores are literally holding items for you. I literally had a thrift store manager come up to me today with an item in hand saying, is this something you would buy? This looks like something you would want. And I wanted you to have first access to it before it goes out to everybody else. These things only happen because you're honest with people and because you're kind to them. They see me, if I'm going through the thrift store and there's a shirt on the ground, I pick it up and put it back in the hanger. I don't just walk past it or roll my cart over and wreck it. People see these little things when you're trying to legitimately do good because it's coming from your heart that's filled with good. And it works out in your favor. So I encourage you today, be that person who's a good reseller from a good, pure heart who goes about doing good, and watch as your life is blessed. I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.